cross-border surrogacy and how the FBI has investigated this in a previous case around 2 years ago. We're going to have a quick look at it, but we're really going to talk about the relevance of it and all of the elements that come out of it, because although this article is a couple of years old, the things like this are still happening. Things haven't changed, and there are some areas that you really need to kind of think about. Let's have a quick look at the clip and the elements so that you can really get a sense of what that means.
Into the FBI investigation into a surrogacy clinic that claimed it would save couples money by using surrogates in Mexico, but some clients say they were scammed by the clinic. It's a story we first saw in the LA Times. Kaylee Hartung has the latest. Good morning, Kaylee.
Good morning, George. Lilly Frost claims that her surrogacy business helped more than 150 clients build their families. But others say that Frost mismanaged hundreds of thousands of dollars, wasted their invaluable time, and never delivered on her promises.
I think why this is really important, it's about understanding exactly the role that the agency you're working with is playing. It's understanding what they're delivering, what you're contracted for, and what are they saying is the outcome. How are they going to ensure that they deliver exactly what you're expecting them to deliver? And particularly in places like Mexico and other cross-border locations, people really need to understand and look for those red flags. People, unfortunately, who run some of these agencies aren't always operating with the best interests of you, the surrogate, or potentially anyone else involved. It's really important that you look at some of those elements to make sure that you are really checking and making sure that you're contracted. They have a legal entity in the jurisdiction that they're operating in. They have boots on the ground. They have a team. Question them about how they're going to deliver their service. What infrastructure do they have, what partners do they have. All of those things are really important when looking at choosing your surrogacy agency. And this case particularly was investigated by the FBI, and there's this whole area where people are being scammed. Let's just take a little bit more of a look into some of the impact of this particular case.
To just leave us standing at the last minute like that, with a lot of uncertainties and a lot of concerns about being able to bring our children home. That was a big betrayal by her.
This morning, families left reeling after they say they were taken advantage of in a surrogacy scandal. The FBI is now investigating Surrogacy Beyond Borders, founded by Lilly Frost, a program claiming to connect prospective parents to surrogates in Mexico.
And that's really important to us because we offer a very similar program to this with Canadian clinics and utilizing surrogates who are part of our program in Mexico City. Now, we always approach this in the best way to make sure that everyone is protected and that everyone knows what those stages are from A to B. But not everyone has that similar approach. Not everyone looks at the ethics involved and how everyone throughout the whole process can be protected and safeguarded against elements like this.
While saving over 60% compared to U.S. options. The LA Times reports that it spoke with some of Frost's former clients who say they paid her thousands of dollars that she mishandled as her business failed.
As a result of her not being able to keep up with some of the promises she made, many of the families didn't have any child or even healthy embryos to show for it moving forward.
Frost.
I think that's a really sad part of this, is that intended parents who are working with agencies, they're entrusting their savings, their emotions, their hopes and aspirations of building a family with people who are providing a service or a promise to get them to that end point of building their family. One of the elements that's talked about specifically in here is surrogacy in Mexico, but I think that the real crux or the real elements of this story aren't necessarily about surrogacy in Mexico. It's about an agency that is taking people's money, providing or promising a service, and ultimately not delivering it. And that's really what this is about. And the FBI should be investigating it because we're not talking about insignificant amounts of money here. These are sometimes over 150,000 US dollars. People are putting their all hopes and dreams into creating their family, and sometimes they don't have any available funds beyond that to kind of add to a journey or to start a journey again. So, I recognize as a surrogacy agency owner and as a dad through surrogacy, the level of responsibility that we take on when we're trying to help people create those families. But we should always be building the frameworks in to this to make sure that everyone is protected, and that, you know, the funding of your agency and the funding of your journey is also managed in a way that you're not fronting everything up front, because that also puts you and everyone else at risk. And how we manage it at My Surrogacy Journey, particularly our Mexico program, is that we phase the payments all the way through so that it's kind of really taken into account for it. We also do it to help people manage the financial cash flow of a journey as well. But let's listen about a little bit more.
Declining an interview with ABC News, but telling the LA Times that due to problems beyond her control, including an inexplicable decrease in IVF success rates and challenges of the pandemic, she lost her ability to cover escalating expenses. Adding she was devastated and even drained her retirement account and sold her house to try to pay the bills. According to the CDC, more than 9,000 pregnancies were attempted via surrogate in the U.S. in 2019, up from just 2,600 in 2010, each typically costing upwards of $150,000.
I've always wanted kids before I even met Paul, and I've always had money set aside for a kid.
Husbands Paul Hard and Jonathan Guyette say they paid Frost more than $150,000 to help them have 2 children. But just a week before their second baby was born, they say they got some disturbing news.
The caseworker in Mexico was saying, we're not receiving money. And they were being told that we had not paid. And she would say, well, the money will be there in 3 days. The money will be there in 3 more days. The money will be there tomorrow. And then she stopped communicating.
They say they went to Mexico and paid more money out of pocket to cover the expenses that remained, bringing the baby safely home.
We've got a lot of gratitude that we've got 2 beautiful children and they're doing great. It is distressing to think that someone would take advantage of folks and misuse them like this.
Experts say when considering using a surrogate, it's important to do your research.
You want to make sure that your team has excellent experience, a good reputation, years and years of doing this, lots of transparency, openness, honesty, good communication. These are all the hallmarks of a good surrogacy team.
Experts say surrogacy can be risky when you try to cut corners, but when done right, those risks are contained. And again, through this process, experts say that surrogates and the clients need to be transparent, and everyone needs to be financially, mentally, and physically ready for it. Guys.
Look, I think that kind of sums up the whole overview of this case specifically. And I think there are some really vital parts in some of that reporting. It is about having trust and confidence in the agency that you're working with. It's having a feeling that they're advocating for your best interests, and also making sure that everyone involved in the process is having the same level of care and support throughout that. It's about making sure that you trust your senses. If something doesn't feel right or something feels off, then ask more questions. It's about having the confidence to be able to challenge these so-called experts. And we have a very specific podcast called Agency Red Flags, which is a really good one to listen to give you some of those tips and tricks about some of the questions that you should be asking, really to make sure that you can hold your agency or your proposed agency to account. You can make sure that they can answer all of your questions. So I think it's really important that you do your due diligence, that you work with the right partner, but that you do a lot of research and get all of the information that allows you to make the most informed decision. That's what you should be looking at. How do you get all of the information to know that you're making the best decision for you? Because often when these cases go wrong, or other potential elements of your journey goes wrong, it's because you haven't put the work in, or you haven't got all of the information to make the right decision. Now look, this is not the norm in surrogacy. Let's just put this into context. This is more about an agency mismanaging her business, which had an impact on people, family creation, people losing money. That's not acceptable in any way, shape or form. But ultimately, surrogacy can and is successful, but you have to choose the right partner and you have to make the right decision. So look, I'm going to stop talking because I think I've talked enough. But remember, like, subscribe and follow to see more episodes just like this. Take it easy. I'm Wes. Bye-bye.